Good evening, everyone. We'll see how this goes and wrap it up. So I have a really important artifact. Many of you have already seen it. This is, I'll tell you the story. Greg Walcher in the late 80s was working for U.S. Senator Bill Armstrong. Greg's here somewhere. Greg, where are you? There he is, right over there. And so Greg and some of his friends on took a little time off. They went down to Richmond, Virginia, and toured St. John's Church. Now, St. John's Church is where Patrick Henry made the famous Give Me Liberty speech, which turns 250 years old a month from tomorrow. And it came to mind today because of our preparation for the 250th anniversary next year of our Declaration of Independence. So Greg went on the tour and visited the church and the museum. And as they were leaving, he noticed a guy outside tearing out part of an old wall and just throwing the bricks in a pile and disposing of them. So if I remember the story, he goes up and says, "What are you going to do with those bricks?" And the guy says, "I don't know. I think it's going out to the landfill." And so he said, "Can I grab a few?" So he loaded up his trunk with a bunch of bricks from St. John's Church, and he heard the Patrick Henry rendition that we do here at LPR. And we invited him back, because he speaks every year. And before he got started, he opened up a paper bag and said, "Schaffer, you should have this brick." He'd been using it for a bookend. So it's a remarkable artifact that I love. I'm going to put it right here before I drop it. It's a remarkable artifact. I keep it in my office, and students sometimes come in and take a look at it. And I'm going to finish up with that. And given that my voice is failing, you might be able to help me with the words at the end of the speech. It'll be a good place to adjourn. All right, so we're not going to come back next year in the 250th year of the anniversary of our Declaration of Independence and just celebrate 250 years of independence. No, our mission of this organization is to add life, to add depth to that declaration, to realize that we are, as Americans, heirs to the ideas of that declaration. It is a remarkable document, of course. We've heard it described in so many eloquent ways while we were here over the weekend. 150 years, at the 150th year anniversary, 100 years ago, President Coolidge spoke on that occasion in Philadelphia. And it's a great speech. It's a long speech. I urge everybody to go look it up and read Coolidge's remarks. It's the most academic, most spiritual treatment and lesson about the proper understanding of the Declaration. Here's one line that stands out. In its main features, the Declaration of Independence is a great spiritual document. It is a declaration not of material, but of spiritual conceptions. Equality, liberty, popular sovereignty, and the rights of man. These are not elements which we can see or touch. They are ideals. They belong to an unseen world. I will predict that if we don't assert what we know through this organization in the next year in preparation for this celebration, at least in our circles, I just predict that anniversary is going to occur and move on in an improper way, in ways that celebrate barbecue and hot dogs and having gatherings in your backyard and fireworks and all of that, which we should do. But those celebrations, to a large measure, will miss the essence that Calvin Coolidge reminded the nation at the 150th anniversary. So here are some things that are coming up that we can do, just by way of looking back 250 years now, we think of these things as historic events, but if you think about it, these are things we can all do, that we're already doing as an organization. Be a good opportunity to amp it up over the course of the next year. so that we are leading in the celebration and the teaching of what this declaration represents for our country and for ourselves. Samuel Adams, in 1765, starts the formation of the Sons of Liberty. We could do that. In May of 1754, Ben Franklin, in the Albany Congress, proposes the Albany Plan of Union, which is famous for the join or die political cartoon, the snake divided into 13 sections, symbolizing the need for colonial unity. In 1775, Mecklenburg resolves, maybe the precursor to the Declaration of Independence, local leaders declared all British laws null and void and effectively created an independent government. This was done by local leaders. Keep that in mind. We can do things like this in our neighborhoods. Mercy Otis Warren, in the 1770s, wrote plays and pamphlets criticizing British rule. Thomas Paine's Common Sense, January of 1776. The Boston Tea Party, June 1773. Reverend Mayhew coined no taxation without representation. Well, there's a phrase, sums it all up, animated his countrymen. We still like to say that today. Betsy Ross, 1776, sews the first American flag. And the Committee on Correspondence, which ran through the 1760s, 1775, was a colonial-style social media of its day, characterizing and qualifying and articulating the terms of what liberty would look like in a North American continent. And then, of course, Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty speech, March 23rd, 1775. We can all do something here. All right. This popped into my lap just a few days ago. I was on a panel interviewing some scholarship applicants. These are high school seniors applying for some scholarships. I got invited to help screen and interview. Listen, you can imagine, we're screening interview questions from high school students in general, and they're just what you would think. And then all of a sudden, this young lady appears, and here's what she writes. This is just part of what she writes. I hope to be a nurturer of my family, a hard worker, a servant of my community, as well as an outspoken advocate for my faith and freedom. I want to be a compassionate, diligent individual who pours into the lives of others and the surrounding community. President Ronald Reagan once said, freedom is a fragile thing. It's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance, but it must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And she says, I wholeheartedly agree with this statement, which is why I view the role of a mother as one of the most important responsibilities. I have met numerous young women in my generation who do not want children because of the state of our world and what it is in. However, the depraved state of the world is the very reason I am motivated to become a mother, because I know my children will be the solution. Therefore, I hope to be a nurturer of my family, to raise children who will fight for freedom, to work hard, to love others. And she goes on to talk about her other aspirations in dentistry. And in another essay, she quotes Ben Franklin. This will be a good place to finish. Where liberty dwells, there is my country. And that gets back to what Coolidge reminds us, that these ideals are outside of this world. They are ideals about the human condition, about mankind, that must be understood. We must take the time to do it and get really, really good at articulating these values and fighting for them wherever we happen to be. Patrick Henry, when told at St. John's Church, where this brick heard the speech maybe, that it was a hopeless cause. And he says, they tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. I'll skip a few lines. But when shall we are not weak. I Well, maybe I shouldn't skip a few lines. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. The millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as that which we possess, are invincible by any force our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. And he speaks later in a speech where he comes down the home stretch, the words you all know, and when we get to them, you can join me. He talks about the battle. It's now too late to retire from the contest. The fight is already on. He says, the war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace. There is no peace. The war is already begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.